So of course I picked the gloomiest day of the month to record a video. I could have picked practically any other day in October, and I would have had better natural lighting than I do now. But had it not been for this inclement weather, I probably wouldn't have sat down and recorded this video to begin with. So I guess there's a silver lining there. Okay, here's my sit back and relax disclaimer, since this is obviously going to be a pretty long video. And if you don't like that, then, leave. You kind of know the drill by now if you have any idea as to what I do on this channel. And if you don't, then, look at the length of the video and decide if you want to sit through that. This video is mainly going to consist of me rambling and talking about the apps I have on my phone. So if that's not your cup of tea, then look for your cup of tea. As in, don't watch the video. Okay, moving on. I haven't made a video in this series in, I believe, a year. Yeah, it's been 11 months to a year. I think I made the last one in November of 2016. So I've had this device now for 2 years instead of 1. So yeah, there's a change. Now I'm going to briefly talk about my, projected future with this device, considering it's been out for 2 years now and I've owned it for that length of time, for all intents and purposes. Like a year and 11 months and change. So yeah, 2 years. If the battery doesn't crap out anytime soon, then I think I'm going to be holding on to this device for the foreseeable future, like the next 6 to 8 months, especially considering how big of a disappointment the Pixel 2 XL has turned out to be with its inexcusable display. I've checked out the Pixel 2 XL in multiple Verizon stores and could not stand the horrific viewing angles. It's such a corner-cutting display, and it's unacceptable for the price you pay for it. So I'm not going to pay that price for it because it is not worth it, due to the fact that premium materials don't seem to be a priority for Google. They seem to care too much about the software to the point where they're willing to compromise on hardware for a price that's uncompromising. It's not a product worthy of the price they're charging for it. That display, My Nexus 6P has a better display than the display on the Pixel 2 XL, and this costs $300 less in 2015, and it still has a better display because Samsung manufactured this panel, and it wasn't even their top tier Samsung panel from 2015, but it still bests the panel that's on the 2017 Pixel XL2 that they're charging a premium price for. They're charging $950 for the 128 gig model, which would be the one I'd consider because, 128 gigs is ideal for me. So that's just, no, absolutely not for that price. It is borderline highway robbery, and it's, the Pixel XL2 is, I think, an even greater disappointment for me than the iPhone X is, with its, catastrophic neglect of, user experience, at least seemingly so. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. If I were to get one phone on the market, it'd be the Essential phone. I am not kidding you. The Essential phone has been unfavorably reviewed by quite a few people in the tech space, but they just cut the price. So it was $700 at retail. Almost nobody was buying it, so now they're charging $500 for it. Like, this is effective as of the day I'm recording this video. They've chopped the price, so it's now $200 less than it used to be. And at $500, it's the only phone right now I'd consider purchasing, despite the fact that the camera leaves a lot to be desired, and despite the fact that it's using an LCD panel instead of an AMOLED panel or an OLED panel. AMOLED panel, because let's face it, LG's OLED technology for smartphones is way behind, as is seen with the Pixel 2 XL. For $500, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better built smartphone than the Essential phone. And for that reason, if I had gun to my head, if I had to buy a current flagship, it'd be the Essential phone, because it runs stock Android, has 128 gigs of built-in storage. It's a nice looking phone, forward-thinking design-wise, which the Pixel 2 is not, and even the Pixel 2 XL. It has a decent LCD for what it's worth, high pixel density, not too many issues. So if I had to buy a phone right now, I'd shell out the $500 for the Essential phone. but it's not that necessary considering that my Nexus XP is still functional. But it's a nice phone for the price, and I wouldn't pay more than $500 for a phone as it stands right now. And considering that I value stock Android more than I do anything else on a smartphone, there's nothing in that price range I'd consider buying, and there's nothing above that price range I'd consider buying. I mean, the only other one would be the Pixel 2 XL, and the display for that smartphone is a deal breaker for me, frankly. So I thought that spiel was necessary for the video because it sort of, I guess I'm just explaining why I still have this phone 2 years after purchasing it, since 2 years is the longest I've used a smartphone as my daily driver. So I'm, telling you why I'm still using it 2 years after the fact. This is my third Nexus XP. I got this one in April of this year, so I've had this particular unit for 6.5 months now, going on 7, and it's serving me pretty well. As we will observe in a bit, the battery has kept up for the most part with its capacity, but it's slowly dwindling in terms of estimated capacity, which is a pretty widespread issue with the Nexus XP, and it's why I would not suggest picking one up like secondhand, because there are a lot of defective batteries in these units. So it's a luck of the draw. You could very well get a device, if you buy one secondhand, that has a battery that'll crap out within a matter of months. So it's not worth the gamble, unless you know what you're doing and can replace an embedded battery on the fly, which is something I cannot do and will not try to teach myself to do, because I do not have the money to experiment with the phone in case the experiment goes south. So that's where we're at. Now on to the video. And yes, I know I have a weak old nail polish on my thumb. I know it's unappealing to look at, but if you have such an issue with it that you have to let me know in the comments, I think you have more mental problems than I do. And I'm a guy who puts nail polish on my fingers. Okay, moving on. Okay, so here's my lock screen. I think one of my biggest complaints with stock Android is how small the lock screen clock is relative to the size of the screen. I mean, that's really minuscule. I wish there was an option to enlarge it. I couldn't find any piece of software, even one that requires root access, that allows me to change the lock screen clock size. I think that would be pretty basic, since it seems like such a design oversight. Like, that's too small. Make it larger. I don't need, it's just a bunch of empty space around the clock, even with notifications. So what if I have a few under here? It still doesn't compensate for the size of the, anyway. Okay, here's a lock screen. Here's my wallpaper. It's a wallpaper that comes with the Google Pixel Launcher, which is what I have. This is not the most current build of the Pixel Launcher, and that's because I dislike what Google did to the new Pixel Launcher. It looks kind of unsightly, especially if you don't have your navigation bars, because the search bar is just unnaturally close to the edge of the display if you don't have the nav bar. Since I don't have the nav bar, it makes more sense for me to just retain the Pixel Launcher that came with the original Pixel. Seems like Google did a lot of things better with the original Pixel than they did with the revised one. Who would have guessed? Okay, so here's my page, my one home screen page that I have with my most used applications. A lot of stuff is kind of unchanged from last year, but I will expound upon things that are new, because that's what this video is kind of about. Without that purpose, I mean, this would be the most useless video I posted on my channel, and that's saying a lot. First one is the weather channel. That's my preferred weather app of choice, just because it's the most accurate in my experience. I like the user interface. It seems on the whole to be more accurate than competing weather services like AccuWeather. So that's why it's the first application on my home screen page, because it's one I use daily. So yeah, that's the weather channel. Then we have Twitter. It's not my favorite Twitter client in terms of design, but it's the most functional one because DMs work properly, because it's the official Twitter application, and they restrict third-party developers from utilizing Twitter's, functionalities to their completest. So this is the most useful one. It's not the best looking one, but I'd rather have utility over design when it comes to a social networking platform, because at the end of the day, if I need to tweet something or if I need to reply to someone's DM, I'm going to have to use the option that allows me to reply to that DM in the most optimal way possible, if that makes sense. Then next we have Google Inbox, which is my preferred email client. That hasn't changed in years, and I don't think it's going to change. It's my favorite overall client because it separates things into like updates, purchases, and things of that nature. And I don't believe other email clients have that ability, even Gmail. I could be wrong because I've abstained from like even trying other email clients just because this one works so well. Then we have Camera, the Google Camera app. Haven't found a need to use any third-party camera apps. It works pretty well. It's kind of slow at taking pictures, but I just think that's an issue with the 6P in general. It just doesn't have the fastest shutter, which is fine because I don't take pictures that often. Then we have YouTube, of course, YouTube client. Then VLC Media Player, my media player of choice for Android and mobile in general. And then we have WhatsApp, which is my preferred cross-platform messaging client because that's virtually everything you'd need from such an application. I like the fact that you can crop screenshots on the fly, and that's something that Google Allo does not have the capability to do yet. So even though I prefer the aesthetic of Allo over that of WhatsApp, it's just not as functional as WhatsApp is. So on the whole, I prefer WhatsApp. And even though I'm really a stickler for UI, when it comes to like messaging and having to get a message across to someone else, that's when design kind of goes out the window for me, and that's when I just prioritize effectiveness. Then we have Play Music, which I use secondarily to title, but I have to pay $10 for title, I think, on Tuesday. That's when I have to shell out another $10. I get a student discount, but still, $10 is quite a bit of stomach when it's a monthly fee and you're a semi-broke college student. So, but Play Music, I've uploaded like soundboard recordings of concerts onto my Play Music profile, so I can stream those through Play Music, whereas I can't stream those through Tidal because Tidal doesn't have the option for you to upload things in FLAC and stuff like that. Play Music doesn't either, but 320 kilobits per second is fine for mobile use. So I use Play Music to, listen to concerts basically that I've scoured the internet for and uploaded. Then we have Allo, talked about that. I use that for like one group chat. And then we have Play Store, followed by Google Maps, the latter of which has been a godsend for me over the last month, since navigating a large metropolitan area can get a little bit difficult if you have little to no life experience doing so. So that's come in handy. Then we have Google Keep, which is where I keep all my to-do lists and shopping lists. And then fuck off, please. Thank you. Okay, I'll admit that was a tad harsh. Then we have Compass, just some Compass app I found on the Play Store, which comes in handy when I'm trying to navigate through a large metropolitan area and I'm trying to identify which direction I'm facing so I know where I'm going. Because in Chicago, Lake Michigan is to the east. So if I know the direction I'm heading in, I can sort of navigate my way through the city, knowing which way's north, which way's south, west, and east. Just knowing that, the further east I go, the closer I get to the lake. So yeah, sometimes I don't need the whole Google Maps hoopla. I know my way around at this point just by knowing which direction I'm going in. Usually I can tell based on the sun's position, which direction I'm going in, but if it's like high noon, it's pretty difficult to do just by looking at the sun. Then we have Instagram. Follow me at NasDavie, NASDAVII. I've changed my handle for my Twitter and Instagram semi-recently. So just a little update for that. Then we have Weather Underground, which I think is a subsidiary of the Weather Channel, because the information that it has is practically identical, but it's a bit more in depth than the Weather Channel's data is. So even though it's using the same data, it's more extensive with the Weather Underground. So I have both applications. Sometimes I don't need all the barometric pressure crap that Weather Underground gives me. So, but I have both there. I think they're the two best weather apps. If you can only have two weather apps on your phone, the Weather Channel and Weather Underground or Wonderground should serve you very well. Okay, then the doc, as I've told you, I have Tidal. I have Tidal, then Messages, Relay Pro, which is still my favorite Reddit client by a country mile. And then the phone app, followed by Google Chrome, which is still the best web browser for Android, even though it's not perfect. But I mean, Safari is the best mobile web browser, I think, by a significant margin, even current day, which is, I think, something Google really needs to improve. I think if there's one thing Google could improve with Android, I think is just the fluidity of their native web browsing experience. But there's just my little hot take. All right, here's the app drawer. We have AccuBattery, which comes in handy for measuring my battery health. Oh, how convenient. My battery health is doing pretty good. I mean, considering I've had this phone for 7 months, it's still at 96% its capacity, at least that's what AccuBattery estimates. It's still a better figure than what was it, like 61% I had with my other unit. So, you know, it might get there eventually, but hopefully by that time I'll have a different phone. 96 is pretty fine. My battery life has only decreased ever so slightly noticeably, and part of that could just be the placebo effect because I know what my battery health is, so I can just claim that I've seen a slight dip, but I don't know. 96% still a-okay. So this phone doesn't seem to have as crappy a battery as my other two phones have. So, but still, I don't recommend getting a 6P because you could very well get a phone with a bad battery. So there's a little disclaimer. That's a handy app. It's free. You don't even have to pay the pro version to get your battery health. Then we have the Amazon shopping app, followed by Backdrops, which is my go-to wallpaper app when I'm not using the stock wallpapers that Google has. Then we have Blur Free. It allows you to blur photos for wallpapers. Haven't used it, but it's nice to have. Then we have two calculator apps. I think this one I downloaded. Wait, what? Okay, maybe they're just duplicates. That's a possibility. Yeah, they're duplicates. This is a ROM. I'm using a ROM actually. Let me go to my. It's based on 8.0.0. It's called like Nitrogen OS N or something. Yeah, Nitrogen 2 OS or something. Well, just look up Nitrogen 2 Nexus XP and you'll probably find it on XDA forums. But it's running 8.0.0, relatively recent security patch level. It's a good ROM. I mean, I've had very few, if any, bugs with it. It's a stable release, like by name. It's not just stable, like, I've found it to be stable. It's a stable release. That's what the developers called it. And I mean, it lives up to it. I mean, I haven't had any like recognizable bugs surface, so that's good. And it's running the latest version of Android. So I think so. I don't think 8.0.1 or 8.1's out yet. So I think this is the most recent version. And it's been working fine. I get a few like software tweaks baked in. So that's why I decided to flash this ROM after flashing the Android Oreo factory image when I did. And by the way, I uploaded like a 10-minute performance review video of Oreo running on the 6P. If you want to check that out, I'll have a link in the description, naturally. It's a pretty decent video. I basically just said, just update if you can, because Android Oreo is a better functioning operating system than any previous OS release for the 6P ever was. So if you're stuck with the 6P, basically, then update to Oreo, because it's probably the best experience you're going to have. That's basically the video summed up, so don't need to watch it, actually. And then we have two calendar apps. See, a lot of duplicate apps. And I've just realized the fact that these apps are duplicated now. I tend to discard the ones that look unnatural, like this calendar app is not Google's. I don't think so. Yeah, that's just some off-brand calendar app, some obscure one, so. I'm not that bugged by the duplication of like apps because I tend to not visit my app drawer that often. Like really, I could live with just these apps. Like 93 to 95% of the time, I'm just on this home screen page whenever I'm navigating the launcher. So it's of no, like, it doesn't really matter to me, the fact that I have a lot of duplicated apps. I mean, I've just noticed that these apps are duplicates, so that I think that goes to show how infrequently I visit the app drawer. Okay, scrolling down. Okay, where are we? Okay, 2 clock apps, fine. Contacts app, that's not duplicated, that's good. Then we have CPU Z, which allows me to monitor my CPU clock speeds. I don't have an overclock on my device, I don't think so. Just because, I mean, I haven't had the chance to overclock. I haven't found the need to overclock, rather. And overclocking the Snapdragon 810 isn't the smartest idea. I think a year ago, in my year-old video, I had an overclock applied. That was kind of dumb. The 810 overheats really easily, so overclocking it is really not the best idea because you're not going to see a performance increase. In fact, you're probably going to see a performance decrease due to the fact that the SD810 throttles all the frickin' time. So it's only going to be compounded if you overclock the device. So, yeah. Depot. What the hell is that? It just tells me when trains and buses are leaving because, you know, that's kind of important to me because I tend to move around a lot. I'm kind of mobile, but I just spend most of the time just sitting stationarily on buses and trains. Then we have digital clock Xperia widget. This is a widget I've been using for, I think, 2 years now, pretty much as long as I've owned this device. I've been using this. I think even before then, when I used the Nexus 4, I was using this clock widget. So I've basically just stayed with this clock widget for the majority of my Android life. It's simple. It's customizable. Like you can adjust you can adjust like bold like hours or bold minutes and stuff like that. PM, AM, absent, present, date, and stuff like that. It's very customizable, and I think it fits well with Android just from a UI standpoint. So I think it's a very effective and clean widget, and it's free. And I highly recommend it. It's my go-to clock widget. Haven't had a need to look elsewhere or found a need. Where were we? Okay. Then we have Google Docs. Still important. It's still useful. Kind of screwed me over though. I was writing a paper and I saved it as a .docx file to touch it up in Microsoft Word. And since I'm so used to auto-saving on Google Docs, I forgot to save my revised paper in Microsoft Word before submitting it. So I basically submitted an unfinished copy of my paper, and I just realized last night, the paper was due 2 nights ago, so I submitting the revised copy, which by the way is non-existent because I forgot to save in the first place, is kind of a lost cause because I mean what's done is done. But I mean Google Docs has spoiled me with autosave because I think Word does do autosave just like every 20 minutes, which I mean is pointless if you're editing a paper and your edits take a total of like 15 minutes, which I mean it did. So it didn't quite reach the point at which it would autosave, which is so frustrating. So I guess screw Microsoft Word and all hail Google Docs. But I guess Google Docs kind of screwed me over by, I guess, heightening my expectations. Moving on, we have Doodle Jump. I still play it occasionally. It's a nice nostalgic game. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. Then we have Google Drive, followed by Easy Voice Recorder, my go-to voice recording app, even though I haven't used it in like months. Then we have eBay, followed by Facetune. I don't use it as often, but it's still nice to have, and it's probably the best photo retouching app available for like commercial use. Then we have Fast Like a Fox, which is another game I haven't played in a while. Then Fast Save, don't know what it does, but I have a feeling it has something to do with saving Instagram photos. Haven't had to use that though. Fast Times is the app I use for monitoring the transit system. Not Depot. I don't use Depot, so I might as well just delete that one. Fast Times, for me, is superior from a UX standpoint. Then we have Files, which I think replaced downloads in Android Oreo. Then Flood, which is a torrent client, my go-to torrent client. It's free, has ads, but not really a big deal. Oh my god, I swear to god, if the door closes one more time, I'm going to flip. Well, to tell you the truth, I already did flip out a couple times, but I had the wherewithal to cut it out of this video. So then we have Gallery, followed by Gas Buddy, which is of no use to me now. It was just I used it during a road trip I took to Chicago, but I don't need it now because I don't drive. I get around just walking and taking the bus or the train. Then we have Geekbench 4. It's like a one-time thing. I used it once, haven't used it in months. It takes up like 100 megabytes, and I don't have any use for it now, but it's still there for some reason. Then we have the Google app. I mean, you could just swipe over to see it on the home screen, but it's there. Then we have GroupMe, another messaging client that I don't use anymore. Same with Hangouts. Then we have Horizon Chase, which is like Outrun, like the arcade game, but just an Android version and a bit modernized. And then we have, let's go skip these because we already addressed those. Minigore 2, one of my favorite, go away. Oh yeah, I've accrued like $8.60 via opinion rewards over the last like 4 or 5 months. So, I have like a nice little stash of money to use on apps, but I haven't found a need to use them. Use it, rather. Minigore 2 was one of my, oh my god. Minigore 2 is one of my favorite iOS games and one of my favorite Android games. I mean, it's really pleasurable, and I think it was free. So, then we have the Twerp Recovery app, the official one, which I think can be used to update my Twerp Recovery to WRP, whichever one is more appropriate. I don't know. Then we have PayPal, self-explanatory. The 2 phone apps, I don't know which one's on my home screen, but I think it was the one with the white icon. I don't know. And then we have Photos, followed by private internet access, which is something I shelled out $40 for. I've never had to use a VPN, but since I'm using the university's Wi-Fi, I'd rather save my own ass, I guess, for that odd time I need to torrent something. I'd rather not risk my internet privileges. So that's why I decided to have a little safety net and invest $40 for a year of private internet access, VPN access. So there we go. It's a good, I can vouch for it, I guess. It's the only VPN I've used, but it's been working fine. It doesn't seem to slow down anything, at least like noticeably. I mean, I get like 200 megabits per second down here without the VPN, and then with the VPN like 170, 180. So it's virtually as fast, and the difference for me is negligible, especially since I'm used to like 40 and 45 down as opposed to 200. So I'll take what I can get. Then we have Play Games, followed by Play Music, followed by Play Store, then followed by PNC Mobile, since I'm a PNC customer. Then we have Pocket Mortys. Haven't played the game yet. I just downloaded it because I don't know why I'm never gonna sit down and play Pocket Mortys. But I just have it there because I like seeing Rick Sanchez's face in my app drawer whenever I open up my app drawer, which need I remind you is on a weekly basis. So I guess I just subconsciously open my app drawer to get a weekly fix of the app icon. Okay. Then we have Quizlet, Google Opinion Rewards, Rider, another game I don't bother playing. I just have all these games like superfluously, if that's even an applicable adverb. Ugh. I don't play them. Then we have Root Browser. I mean, my go-to app for editing like files and stuff and accessing downloads. It's been recently updated for Material Design, even though that's kind of 3 years overdue, but at least they finally did it. Then we have Simple Pi Controls, which is this thing. Allows me to not have the navigation buttons. It's a free app, and it works. You can tune it to make it look however you like. It's a really effective application, and it's my recommendation for Pi Controls on Android if you want to get rid of those stupid navigation buttons. I wouldn't necessarily call them stupid. I guess they're kind of practical, but I've just managed to find a way to navigate my device without needing the navigation buttons because they take up quite a considerable amount of space for me. That's just my usage case. Then we have Skype, not a bad app, I guess. Not the best either, but hey, it's how you use the service. Then I have Sleep, which is my alarm app, has some nice sleep tracking software capabilities. And I like the sounds that come with the alarms. Like they have seagull sounds, which helps for me. Like it's more effective. Like soothing seagull sounds is a more effective method of getting up for me than like a blaring alarm is. So that's something. And then let's see what's worth mentioning. Substratum, whichever. I'm covering all my bases here. Is for theming. So theming like which is nice to have. It's not in effect right now, mainly because Android Oreo is kind of finicky with it. The couple themes I've purchased and refunded because they just didn't work that well with the newest Android version, despite them claiming, like the developers claiming that it worked with Android Oreo 8.0. So it's sort of a hit or miss on this Android version, but it's still nice to have there when there are more themes that are like more capable of supporting it. All right, then we have Super SU, root app, of course, the root app. What else? Tuka browser, which is basically a Snapdragon optimized version of Google Chrome. I really haven't found it to be measurably better than Google Chrome, so I don't use it because it's a bit more stripped down than Google Chrome is. But there's no like tangible performance increase to justify that for me. So that's why I don't use it, but it's still there. Let's see. I mean, most of these apps are self-explanatory. Whiteogram allows you to put white borders on Instagram photos, which helps if you're doing like a multiple photo post, because multiple photo posts are cropped into squares, whether you like it or not. So you have to circumvent that by putting white borders on them artificially. Moving on, Yelp. I mean, that's come in handy recently since there are like literally hundreds of restaurants around here. So it's nice to see how good the food is at super expensive restaurants that you could never in your right mind afford to dine at. But, you know, one could dream, I guess. All right, and that's, I guess, it. YouTube Studio creators, I use that very loosely, can track their earnings and stuff through it. So that's that. And I think that's it. That's basically, I've had this, ooh, that was a horrible, Jesus. Yeah, well, what can you do? I mean, phone still works. I'm gonna keep it, I think. The bezels are, you know, they're looking kind of ancient. Like now it's getting more and more apparent that this phone didn't come out in 2017. No one would know it like last year that the phone didn't come out in 2016, but now since 2017 is the year of no bezel, it's more apparent that the phone you have is not a current gen flagship, because that's the most distinguishing feature now. So I guess to fulfill my crippling need for validation, I'm going to have to upgrade my phone, I guess, sometime soon. I mean, it isn't the best performing phone out there because of the stupid, easily overheating chip in it. But it does work. It does everything I need it to do, just not as optimally as a new flagship would, or most new flagships. Like the Galaxy S8 still has its share performance issues. That's why I will never buy a Samsung flagship. Now, if a Samsung phone could run stock Android, I'd go out and buy one. I mean, probably tomorrow. I mean, because hardware-wise, it's virtually unmatched. I mean, in my opinion, the Essential phone's up there. Like, I think the Essential phone is, on the whole, a better phone design-wise than the Galaxy S8 is. But I think that's a bit subjective, even though all design is. But, you know, there's a bit of objectivity to it. But hey, I'm pretty sure the 6P has a better screen-to-body ratio than the Pixel 2 does, and that came out this year. So maybe I'm a bit more ahead of the curve than I think. Thanks for watching and sticking until the end, if you did stick until the end. Thank you for distracting me from the avalanche of homework I have to do. You've been great, and you've just been able to design. And I'll catch you in the next one. All right, later, guys.